మీరు వస్తలేదు మళ్ళా. వీడియో ఇప్పుడు వస్తుంది. రైట్. హలో హలో స్టూడెంట్స్, హలో స్టూడెంట్స్, హలో
హలో
హలో పార్టిసిపెంట్స్, హలో రావాలి, మీరు రావాలి. హలో, టుడే I am Dr. Anjaya, Professor of History, Usmania University. Our topic is title of the our topic is national movement. Our topic is national movement. National movement, fourth semester, national movement. Yesterday I completed 2 units. One is the socio-religious reform movement. Block 1 is completed, socio-religious reform movement, and also early associations. So these 2 are completed. Today we are going to discuss the early Indian National Congress, Indian National Congress early phase, that is the unit 3 or block 2, and the second lesson is Indian National Congress early phase from 1885 to 1905, that is early phase of the Indian National Congress. Second one is that the rise of militant nationalism, 1905 to 1919 or 1905, after militant nationalism or growth of militant nationalism. That is the unit, means fourth unit. Unit 2, unit 3 and 4 we are going to discuss today in this class. So now Indian National Congress early phase, Indian National Congress early phase, how it has emerged. Indian National Congress. Indian National Congress is emerged due to the early associations which were prevalent in India and also abroad for bringing political consciousness in India and reforms in India, or put the grievances of the Indians to the British administrators. On this basis, the early associations are worked. Indian nationalism is emerged due to the very foreignness of the British rule. Very foreignness of British rule means what? See, earlier, before British also, Muslims, Delhi Sultanates, and also Delhi Sultanates and Mughals were also foreigners, but they lived in India, spent in India, and consumed in India, everything spent in India. But whereas Britishers who came to India always seeing India as their temporary home, sending their salaries excess amount of their salaries, means what surplus amount of their salaries, or whatever they gathered here on trade and other or in the bureaucracy they were serving. So all these excess were sending to the England and seeing India as a permanently as a alien nation, and foreign nation. So this was the attitude of the Britishers. So that is reason the Indian nationalists are fought against the British rule. British rule is a Indian nationalist, early phase from 1885 to 1905. The early nationalist work is that they explode the exploitative nature of the British rule. See, due to the British rule, early Indian educateds in 1857, early Indian educateds were the supporters of British rule. But whereas from 1885 onwards, they were opponents of the British rule. They demanded reforms. Why this early nationalists demanded reforms and they explored British rule as an exploitative rule? Why British rule is an exploitative? Because by this period, by 1885, early associations were first association 1866. East India Association was established by the Dadabhai Nehruji in England, and those branches were also established in India, and also other British Indian Association, British Bengali Landlords Association, Bengali Presidents Association, Madras Mahajana Sabha, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, Bombay Presidency Association, and later on Indian Association by Surendra Banerjee, and thus that association was going to become a all India organization. So to prevent this organization, Lord Dufferin and also Gilbert Bill controversy, all Europeans are formed into a all India European Defence Association, then pushed the Ripon out of India and called back to England because of pressurization of the Europeans' agitation in India. So that is the reason. In spite of Indian press, Indian intellectuals, a large majority supported Ripon. However, Ripon called back to England. So that is reason Indians are realized the need of All India organization in India to work for the promotion of the Indian interest. So this was how this was developed by the socio-cultural movements are also due to these movements, a nationalist feeling is aroused in India. Swami Vivekananda, Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Dayananda Saraswati, all these socio-religious reform movement aroused among the Indians a kind of national feeling, self-feeling. Indians no way backwarded compared to the England. But however, English people thought, advocating that Europeans are more civilized, white man burden theory, and they are civilizing the Indians or Asians. But this was rejected by the Indian intelligentsia. Why? By the Indian intelligentsia, by 1854, 57 universities are established on the model of British Western education. Western educated Indians are emerged in Bengal, Bombay, and Madras. In all three presidencies, Western educated class emerged. They started realizing or see true nature of the British rule. Due to British rule, ruined every aspect of Indian. Peasants were ruined because more rent was collected based on the introducing of three revenue systems: Raitwari system, Malwari system, Jamindari system. Whatever system, the revenue collection for peasants were doubled, tripled compared to the Mughal period. So, extracting more revenue from the peasants. And Indian industries were not developed in India, whereas artisans, native industries were all collapsed due to the competition of the English machine goods. Already England was industrialized. Those industrial goods are pumped into India and thus sold out in India through the railways and transport system and communication system were all unified in India. So this unification is one side is helped for the British exploitation, other side helped to growth unity among the Indians. Uniformity administration, uniformity economy, uniformity of postal, telegraph, and railways, communication, the transport and communication, and also English language connected all the intellectuals of India together through the English medium of language. Thus, Indian intellectuals gathered and thought the true nature of British rule is an exploitative rule. So, thus exploiting the India in all aspects, India became a purchaser of manufacturing British industrial goods and supporter of the raw material to the English industries. Instead, whereas in England, artisans though ruined because of industrialization, but new industries are established because all artisans are accommodated in the industries. But whereas in India, in modern industries were not developed. Even those developed also what industries? Plantation. And also railways were developed through their English money. Why? Because that is needed for their pumping of Manchester goods to all corners of India and also picking up the raw material and sending to England missionary for that, and also movement of troops from one place to another place to suppress the Indian rebellions or revolts. So for this purpose, railways are developed, communication. Thus, India was unified through the postal and communication system, transport system, and also English education helped to the Indians those uniformity of administration, uniformity system of Britishers are helped to the Indians one side, Britishers are other side. Britishers are other side to exploit the India. For Indians, another side is to make unite among the people of India of the three presidencies. Unity developed due to this uniformity systems which developed by the Britishers. So this way, Western thought was imbibed by the English educated class. Why these Britishers are not introducing parliamentary rule in India? They believed that Britishers are democratic rule, parliamentary rule, and against British, America was became independent and independently ruling by themselves. But why India? It is not introducing reforms in India. That early educated class, moderates, are the early educated class who were gathered under the Heoyum with the initiation of Dufferin, Heoyum initiation, Dufferin request. The Indian National Congress was formed in 1885 at Bombay in the last 3 days of December. So this was worked, demanded continuously, introduce reforms in India and introduce modern industries in India and also introduce administration. Indians were not taking in administrative higher posts, civil service, so that civil service, administrative higher post should be given, also should be given to the Indians, and also parliamentary system of government should introduce in India, because early educated Indians are the 1885 Indian National Congress. It was convened at Bombay, and 1886 Dadabhai under the presidency, Dadabhai 1886 at Calcutta, and 1887 at Madras. In these sessions, what they demanded, they expressed loyalty to the British Crown, because they believed the justice rule of the Britishers, their parliamentary systems. Indian early educators are admired, but early educators admiring the British systems, British parliamentary system that was existed in England. So same system should be introduced in India, and that was demanded and submitted their grievances in administrative posts and also legislative reforms in India, increasing Indians association in the legislation and also in the executive. This was demanded. The purse which was spending, that should be in the hands of the in the hands of the Indians. So legislative reforms. So this way they demanded 1885 onwards. They demanded, but the demand was in what way? Demand was in a way of in a way of prayer petition and constitutional method they followed. In the constitutional method, following the constitutional method, they highlighted explored the exploitative nature of the British rule. India's wealth is draining to England in a different way. Indian industries were not encouraged through the transport system and through the taxation system, through the banking. All were under their what is called, all institutions of government were under their control. Indian industries were not encouraged. Only encouraged the Britishers. British investment encouraged, British industries are encouraged, plantation industries encouraged, British industries encouraged. So this is a what is partisan attitude. India pushed to backward in industrially, economically, ruined. Artisans are ruined. Subsequent development, industrialization is not occurred. So that India was exploited, continuously exploiting drain of India's wealth into England. And in England becoming richer and richer, India is becoming poorer and poorer due to the British rule. That was explained through the different Congress sessions. This was the true nature of British rule is exploitative in all aspects. Economic, administrative aspect, Indians were denied in the higher posts. Economically, exploiting all ways. India was transformed as a colony of purchasers of the British Manchester goods and exporters of raw material. This was unfair of the Britishers' rule. This system, British parliamentary system, same system they were expected to introduce in India, so that in all the sessions, Indian intellectuals are submitted memorandums, petitions, prayers in a constitutional method to the government to redress the grievances of the Indians, develop India economically, introduce Indian industries, protect the Indian industries, protect the Indian capitalists. And instead of that, they were protecting the Indian. So, through law introduced in India on the name of law, peace and order. Peace, the Britishers have stated that earlier there were petty wars in between the rulers. Now petty wars are stopped. Peace and order is established in India. That was the slogan of the Britishers, British administrators. But peace and order is established in India, but continuously exploiting on the name of peace, on the name of police, modern legal system, help to the British supporters, zamindars, landlords, who were created by the Britishers. Those were protected, police, legal systems are all help to the supporters of Britishers, exploiting the Indians, and India's wealth is draining into England. This way, true nature of British rule is highlighted, and through the Indian press is also Indian press and Indian intellectuals through the civil rights. There was no civil rights in India, democratic rights in India. Democracy is not introducing in India. Legislative share in the power is not, legislation in other aspects is not giving to the Indians. So that is way completely in India was exploited by the Britishers. So that is reason against the exploitation. They raised voice and unified the people of all over the India by establishing branches from the presidencies to the local level, brought up unity among the Indian intellectuals, gather the support of Indian intellectuals to the cause of the India against the exploitative nature of British and racial, what is it? See, the English people who are formed in the clubs, Indians were debarred, and English people who are established the community transport system in the railways also racial. Their superior race in that compartment, Indians were not allowed. Indian criminals were also not allowed in front of the Indian judges to punish by the Indian judges, not to trial in front of the Indian judges. So this is way racial arrogance of the Britishers and exploitation of Britishers. Against this, the Britishers, all this as against this, the crushing of the Indian vernacular press, Indian civil rights, Indians were Indian administrative service, they were not taking in higher services, and also in lower services there was no promotion to the Indians. So Indians Sipais were not given on par with the British Sipais salary and other promotions. So this is where all aspect Indian religion was also Indian religions were also criticized, social evils also criticized and insulting Indians. So this is where the Britishers are Indians are unfit for democracy. So that was the advocation. But British Indian intellectuals who are imbibed with Western thoughts, Western Revolution, American War of Independence, French Revolution, then Rousseau, General Will, social contract theory, and Montesquieu separation of powers. These are asked the separation of the administration and judiciary. Indians asked, but the both were under the control of Britishers. So this is way Indians were suppressed in spite of their agitation. 1885 to 1905 in each Congress session and each local level brought up consciousness and brought the many people into the Congress fold. But every year they croaked like frogs, urged petitions, put the petition in front of authorities, but they were not considered any reforms except 1892 Indian Councils Act. Through that act, the Indians were elected in the Legislative Council indirectly. More members are included in the legislative councils, and also indirectly Legislative Council Indian members are included early, at least due to the crying of the Indian National Congress. Then 1885, 86, 87 onwards, Lord Dufferin dubbed the Indian National Congress is a microscopic minority organization. It is a seditious Brahmin organization. It is nowhere representing any masses of India. So it is a Brahmin Babus organization. So that is why criticizing the Indian National Congress by the officials from the Madras session. So earlier, all the accommodation, everything was provided by the British officers at Bombay, at Calcutta, and also at Madras. Thereafter, slowly withdrawn the official support to the Indian National Congress and criticizing Congress as a disloyal Babus, Brahmin Babus, seditious factory, to campaigning against the British rule. So it is nowhere represented all Indian people. So that is way encouraging the Muslims. The Indian National Congress thus followed the divide and rule policy, encouraging the one section against the other section. Thus, Britishers are encouraged, administrators encouraged the Sir Syed Ahmad Khan Muslim League against the Indian National Congress. And not only that, Hindus Mahasabha was also encouraged against the Muslim League. This way, playing with one and against the other. The divide and rule policy introduced in stopping the Indian National Congress. Lord Curzon, in 1905, Congress is tottering and ruining or disappearing in India. His aim is to end the Congress in India or drown the Congress in India. So that is the aim of the Lord Curzon. So this is way Indians, though in spite of their true nature of British exploitative policies, Indian poverty in the India's poverty and British rule. Before British rule, there was no poverty because Indian Rajas were collected the fund, what were collected the cereals and food stories, stored the food grains in at Raja's food corporations and distributed the food at the time of famines. Now, what is happening? Whatever crops are produced, that was sent to the outside of the military camps or outside of the outside England or exported to outside. So there was no food grains. So thus Indians were died large scale due to the British rule in the famine due to the famines in India. Scarcity of food died largely, but that was not met properly. Yeah. Whereas early rulers were met properly, but this Indian Britishers were whatever gathered India through the revenue or the other taxes all spent on English army, British army, increasing British army and British administrative bureaucracy salaries, not spent on either welfare of India or promotion of agriculture or promotion of peasants or welfare of the Indians. So this is way completely exploiting, but in this way, all way 1885 to 1905, Congress is disgusted every year convening the Congress from the democratic way. Congress is so Congress organization is from top to the lower level, village level. It has spread the organizations, and through the village level, district level, the organization selected members, and sending to the All India International Organization. This way, organization is spread all over India. So, no corner of India through the efforts of the early Indian National Congress, then brought up unity among the all Indian intellectuals without caste and creed. All were united. But what achievements? British attitude is that this Congress is ultimately pushed the British rule out of India, so that they were frightened. So they were introduced the divide and rule policy, encouraged the others against the Indian National Congress. So this divide and policy, and then that way the Indian officials are working against the Congress, and thus only little demands were met in spite of roaring 20 years, 1885 to 1905, almost 20 years they cried like the frog. They cried, but no use. They cried petition, constitutional method, they followed their new use. So ultimately, disgusted, disappointed, the young people, young nationalists, Lala Lajpat Rai from Punjab, Balagangadhar Tilak from the Maharashtra, and another one Punjab, the Ajit Singh, Lala Lajpat Rai, brother Ajit Singh from Punjab, Lajpat Rai and Ajit Singh from Punjab, and Balagangadhar Tilak from the Maharashtra, and Bipin Chandra Pal from Bengal. All these, they all young, educated Indians criticized the Congress, moderates Congress. Why? In spite of the 20 years begging, not achieved anything. So they wanted to take up another method of to put up pressure on the English bureaucracy or English merchants or English parliament to give the demands which were demanded by the Congress to the Indians. So thus a pressure tactics method they wanted to follow because of the failure of the administrators, failure of the early Congress. But early Congress failure only little achieved, but early Congress worked very lot. What in what respect? Brought unity without caste and creed. All Indians were gathered under one platform without any differentiation of the region and caste and creed. And also Congress organizations were pushed into the corners of India from above to lower level. Thus, all intellectuals were brought from village level, district level, provincial level to the national level. All Congress leaders of then the educateds were all awakened, brought on the platform, fight against the British undemocratic rule. That was the achievement of the early Congress leaders or the moderates achievement. But this method was disappointed because Britishers were not at all introducing any reforms in spite of urging constitutional method following, but they wanted to follow pressure tactics method, that is Swadeshi, burning the foreign cloth, foreign goods, and and adopt the Swadeshi. Thus Swadeshi and boycott the foreign movement was led by the young educated class from Bipin Chandra Pal from Bengal, toured all over India in Andhra and Madras. Balangadhar Tilak through his the Marathi English newspaper and also Marathi newspaper Kesari Marathi newspaper, and propagated this against the British rule, British exploitative method, and also Lala Lajpat Rai from Punjab, Ajit Singh from Punjab, Arvind Ghosh from Bengal. So all these leaders aroused the feeling of Indian national movement. The Indian intellectuals aroused against the Britishers because they disappointed, disgusted the constitutional method. Then they followed Swaraj, self-rule. Swaraj is my birthright, Balangadhar Tilak. India's discovery of past. In past, India was very glorious. Ashoka the Great, and then the Ganapati and Akbar, Akbar the Great, Ashoka the Great, and then gathering the people, early nationalist, religious platforms are used, and also Shivaji festival, Ganapati festivals to gather the people, masses, and to lead the movement against the Britishers. So thus the movement became All India movement. Thus there was a difference between the early nationalist and the militant nationalist. Militant nationalists wanted to confine only to the Swadeshi, but militant nationalists are wanted to not only confine to Swadeshi and also boycott for foreign, burn foreign. Thus, foreign cloth is burned in front of picketing foreign liquor and burning the foreign cloth or wearing the native Khadar cloth. That was the way. And national song Vande Mataram means the salute to the land of India, Vande Mataram, and Bankish Chandra Chatterjee, Vande Mataram, and the Rabindranath Tagore, Janaganamana, Adhinayaka Jai. So all are one. So that is way, a feeling of national consciousness, national patriotism is increased among the people of educated people of India, and thus they also attempted to masses to include into the movement. Thus the students were entered, and also the women were entered, and thus the movement became a national movement against the British rule. Thus Swadeshi, boycott, Vande Mataram, and against this Lord Curzon, a major is Bengali Babus. Bengal is hardcore center for intellectual, so divide the Bengal. In his motto, division of partition of Bengal. Already Indian National Congress, early Congress leaders are suggested to the British administration instead of for administrative purpose, instead of so partition of Bengal, suggested that partition of Orissa and Bihar can be separated for administrative. If you want for an administrative purpose, that was not listened by British administrators or the Lord Curzon. Divide the Bengali intellectuals into two. One is Bengali Brahmins, another is Bengali Muslims, East, North. So East Bengal is a Muslim dominated. That's Muslims against the Hindus, Hindu Bengali Brahmins. So this is way partition of Bengal is taken up by the Lord Curzon. So against the partition of Bengal throughout India, Bipin Chandra Pal, Bala Gangadhar Tilak, and then Arvind Ghosh from Bengal, Lala Lajpat Rai from the Punjab, Ajit Singh from Punjab, cried, and movement was spread through their newspapers, their gathering. The students, large scale students were gathered in at Rajamundry and other boycott the classes, foreign class. Thus, movement was became a all India movement. Thus, when the movement became all India movement, to satisfy the movement, to crush the movement, what the Britishers, administrators, or viceroys, what they thought, they introduced the 1909 reforms. Earlier, 1892 Councils Act. Now, 1909 Minto-Marley reforms introduced to satisfy the moderates and expel the extremist from that organization and arrest the extremist. So, or crush the extremist. So, satisfy the moderates. 1905 reforms are introduced, that is called Minto-Marley reforms. In this, what was the main idea is that Muslim communal electorates were given. Thus, Muslims are encouraged. Favoritism by the Britishers encouraged the Muslims to work against the Indian National Congress, that is communal electorates are introduced. That was laid the foundation for the partition of India. Communal electorate first time were given to the Muslims. So that is the laid the foundation for the partition of the India into Muslim India, Hindu India. So this is way communal electorates were introduced to satisfy the moderates. But due to this conflict, Indian National Congress was also split up into two groups in 1907. Moderates group, the Rajbihar Ghosh, and then extremist group, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, split into Congress into two groups, extremist and moderates. Thus, two groups are split. Congress is splitted out of the designs of the British administrators. Congress split into two groups, a moderates group, then moderate group Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Rajbihar Ghosh, so and extremist group Bal Gangadhar Tilak split into Congresses. Thus, United Congress is divided into two groups by the machinations of the British administrators. So this is way Britishers were a racial way, racial feeling, and also all the way suppressing the nationalist feeling. Thus, all the extremists, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, and Bipin Chandra Pal, all put behind the bars, Aravind Ghosh and all, Ajit Singh, all put behind the bars. But, however, the movement militant nationalism was not stopped. This was led by the terrorist organization who were given sentence to the Balagangadhar Tilak. Those judges were punished or through the bombs, killing of British officials, unpopular British officials who were anti-Indian, and giving punishments to the nationalists, militant nationalists, those who are killing. That is way terrorist organization or the bomb cult organization is emerged from Punjab and Maharashtra. Large scale terrorist organizations are emerged, carried the national movement, anti-British movement in India. So due to this, Britishers are realized, in spite of the putting the militant nationalists behind the bars, movement is carried. In Bengal, Bengal became a hardcore center for British administration. So till to the now, Bengal was the administrative center of the Britishers. Now in 1909, what happened? The Bengal headquarter of Britishers was shifted to Delhi because Bengal intellectuals were, in spite of partition, Raksha Bandhan and Vande Mataram songs and the Rabindranath Tagore, Janagana Mana, all Raksha Bandhan ties, then large scale, mass scale agitations were going on in Bengal. So that is the reason the annulment or partition is restored. Bengal unity was restored. Bengal, which was earlier headquarter of the Britishers, was shifted to Delhi. Thus, in 1911, Delhi became the capital of India. Britishers, capital of Britishers. Because Delhi, in the beginning, they were taken the power from the Muslims. Delhi was the center of the Muslims, so they were frightened and taken Bengal, which was nearest to the sea. Sea power was dominant among the Britishers, so that is to escape from them from any threat. So Bengal was chosen as headquarters of British. But now, due to the Bengal educated agitation, they shifted the capital from Delhi, Bengal to Delhi. Thus, restored unity of Bengal. Then earlier suggestion, Bihar and Orissa separated for administrative purpose. Thus, militant nationalism, for which it was carried out for anti-partition movement. So that was successfully worked. This was only one in Indian National under the Indian National Congress as Pandal or under Indian National Congress leaders. Under the leadership, this movement was successful movement and restored the unity of Bengal. Partition division was annulled, and then 1900 partition is annulled, and another one during this period, World War also started. Then in England, Mountbatten, who was the Secretary of India, Mountbatten had announced in British Parliament. In the British Parliament, or Britishers' aim is to introduce reforms in India, legislative democratic reforms in India, based on the realization that was announced in British Parliament. Means further reforms are going to introduce in India, giving Indians more power in legislative and Viceroy councils. So thus Indians were included. Thus legislative councils were expanded. Reforms were introduced in India. That was announced in British Parliament to get the support of the Indians in World War I. And also due to the pressurization of the Woodrow Wilson, American president, So pressurization, Britishers were introduced, promulgated Montague announcement in British Parliament. Through that, Montague came to India, and also Chelmsford was the viceroy here, and thus the new reforms, that is 1919 reforms, that is Montague Chelmsford reforms, came into existence out of the militant nationalist movement. Out of the militant nationalist movement, what was the achievement? Restored the unity of Bengal. Restored the unity of Bengal. Then, although militant nationalists were all, Balanandar Tilak were sent to the Mandalay jail for 6 years imprisonment. Thus, by this way, though they attempted to suppress the nationalist movement, but militant nationalist movement is succeeded in two aspects. One is movement has became an all India movement, and another aspect is all India movement. Large number of students are joined into the movement. Large number of masses were also joined into the movement in militant nationalist movement. So there's early Congress movement, moderates movement. There was no masses. There were no students. The only intellectual movement, early phase of the Indian nation movement, Indian educated class movement. But militant nationalist movement has become a mass movement, as large number of students and also women and mass people also entered into the movement. Thus, in a less manner, it has become mass. It has become a mass movement through militant movement, militant nationalist movement, for which it was started, that was achieved. What is restored? The partition of Bengal. Bengal unity again restored. Capital is shifted from Bengal to Delhi because of fear of the British administrators. Bengal has become a hardcore center to the British rule. So, due to that fear of the agitation, all India agitation, then Bengal headquarter is discarded. Delhi became the headquarter of the British rule, restored the unity of Bengal. So, thus the militant nationalism, Swadeshi, born foreign, pressurized tactics. Due to this, what happened? British Manchester's manifestors, merchant Manchester industrialists pressurized on British Parliament to introduce reforms or satisfy the Indians. Due to that pressure, Britishers taken the measures, soft measures towards the India, and increase their representation in British legislature and administrative councils. So that is way the movement, militant nationalist movement for which it was started, that was a movement, a successful movement in all the movements. This was only successful movement, and it has become all India movement, and it has yielded results rather than the early moderates. Early moderates did not achieve much result, but militant agitation, boycott and Swadeshi, burn the foreign, boycott the foreign, burn the foreign, adopt the Swadeshi, national educational institutions, national shops, national spinning and weaving, and wearing of khadi cloth. All these are popularized in India. Thus, the boycott of British courts, boycott of the British educated institution, national institutions came into existence in all over India. National education, English, the indigenous education institutions, and boycott the foreign courts, and then thus this way the movement was successful movement in India. Thus In this class, we covered early nationalist Indian National Congress movement. This movement was successful to brought the all Indians under one platform and bringing of and awareness among all educated Indians on the exploitative rule of in Britishers. Then militant nationalists were succeeded in bringing the movement as a national movement. This movement has become a national movement, and the anti-partition movement restored the unity of Bengal and unity of, in spite of divide and rule, Muslims and Hindus of Bengal were united. Raksha Bandhan. Thus, unity of Bengal is restored. Thus, the movement was successful movement, militant nationalism. Thus, I am here closing my lecture. Thanks to the students, Ravali. Thanks to the Ravali and other students who are participants. Are you able to catch my lesson? So 11 participants are there. So anything else? Any doubts regarding my lessons? My lecture. Thanks to students, Ravali and others. So I am leaving the session because it has to go to the others. So thanks to the students, thanks to the Ambedkar institution. Thanks. Shall I leave? Ravali, shall I leave? Participants, I am leaving.